Well, I'm delighted to be joined by somebody who's been a real friend of RAO events since we started in 2019, Denise Legal, who is chair currently of Brightwell, Brunel Pension Plan, and JP Morgan Retirement Fund. So I'm very grateful that she's made time for it this morning. Denise, good morning and thank you.
Good morning, Andrea. Nice to see you.
It's lovely to see you too. Now, tell me, given that you've got such a packed portfolio of responsibility, why do you always make time for these events? What's the value to you in taking part?
Well, it's important to stay current, and for Brunel in particular, over the years, responsible investment has been at the top of the agenda. And at RAO Global, it's a really good opportunity to meet with leaders in that field. And I've had really good chances to talk to some people who have done some exceptional work across all the E, the S, and the G. And this is an area that's continuing to evolve. So it's important to stay current.
And how do you think panel discussions between great people like that can do? Because it's in public, it's not behind closed doors, the audience can join in. Why is that important? And the networking that goes on around it?
What I've always been surprised at is how authentic people have been. And I think we forget, because the discussions are so interesting, we actually forget that it's open. And yet we're sharing ideas that are very relevant to the here and now, and the changing here and now in particular. So it's just a really helpful event to be able to share ideas and concerns and challenges that we all face.
And I think also what some people have said to us is it's an important way to kind of test the veracity and the commitment of the people they're thinking of collaborating with. Because if you're in the room and you're joining in the conversation and you're networking and talking to people, that says a lot about your commitment. Would you agree with that?
I would, and what worries me slightly with some of the noise that we've seen in certain jurisdictions on trying to push back on responsible investing, and we've been worried about greenwashing for a long time, but now some people are worried about green hushing, and being afraid to say to stick to their commitments, and so that dynamic is important to keep that conversation alive.
And there's new regulations coming in, of course. So it's important, I think, to have a conversation between collaborators about their understanding and how that's going to affect their decisions when they're talking about portfolio construction. Is that right?
That is very true. And there, people talk about data a lot and standardization of data. And one of the worries that I've had recently with some people discussing this is that we're worried about oversimplifying things. And yes, you can have a common set of data, but if it's so simple that it doesn't mean anything, then it's of no use to anyone. So it has to be nuanced, and the narrative becomes even more important than the actual data. The data is there to support the direction of travel.
Well, we actually are on the upcoming conference. We have a couple of data people there who are talking about exactly that, that it's the nuance and it's the understanding of risk and
Yeah.
how data affects your understanding and can drive decisions. What do you look for when you're looking for partners and for, is it new ideas? Is it existing relationships? What is it that makes you make the decision and pick up the phone and say, let's have a conversation?
Well, there's a really long answer to that question, which I don't think we have time for right now. But I think, in a nutshell, I would say we establish the ground rules with which how we will interact with one another. We have investor accords that are not legally binding, but it sets out our expectations of each other on investment matters, and that seems to be working well. If we tend to choose people that are like-minded. If they're not following what they have said they will do, well, then we have to think about how we address that, and we have a way of doing that.
Brilliant. Denise, absolutely wonderful to speak to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian. Bye bye.